That laziness you feel, it is a lie. You aren't lazy, you aren't messy, and you aren't a difficult person. What you are feeling is your nervous system frozen in survival mode. What you call your personality is often just a scar you have learned to dress up. I am sure you have heard the cynics say, "Oh, so everything is trauma now?" Like it is some generic horoscope used to justify being soft. And they are right about one thing. We all have our quirks. But here is the hard line nobody draws for you. A habit is something you choose, and something you can stop whenever you want. A trauma response is something that forces you. If you try to stop doing it, and you feel panic, physical tightness, or unbearable guilt, that is not a bad habit. It is a biological defense mechanism. You aren't broken. You are hyper-adapted to an environment that was not safe. In the next few minutes, we are going to decode the 7 invisible signs you have normalized. Starting with number 1. A work ethic that everyone praises you for, but is actually completely isolating you. And a heads up, pay close attention to the halfway mark. Because we are going to break down the science of why you are physically incapable of enjoying your free time, even when you have absolutely nothing to do. Let's kick things off with habit number 1. Hyper-independence. And I am not talking about being self-sufficient or capable. I am talking about that physical, visceral inability to ask for help, even when you are drowning. We all know this person. Or maybe you are this person. The rock. The friend holding up everyone else's world. The one solving crises at 3 a.m. But who will never, under any circumstances, admit they need backup. Here is where most people make the rookie mistake, confusing this with grit or high performance. Society loves this stuff. You get promoted for this. People tell you, "Wow, you are a machine. You don't need anyone." But biologically, this isn't strength. It is systemic mistrust. Let's look at the hidden logic. Hyper-independence is a conditioned trauma response. At some point in your early history, your nervous system learned a brutal lesson. Needing people is dangerous. Maybe you reached out and got rejected. Maybe you showed vulnerability and got humiliated. Or maybe there was simply nobody at the wheel, and you had to become your own parent at 10 years old. What happens behind the scenes in your brain is both fascinating and terrifying. As trauma neuroscience explains, the body keeps the score. Your limbic system logged every time you reached out and grabbed thin air. To avoid feeling that pain again, your mind rewrote the code. If I don't need anyone, no one can let me down. Think of it like this. You have built a nuclear bunker. It is impenetrable. You are 100% safe inside. Nothing can hurt you. But the problem with bunkers is that if nothing bad gets in, nothing good gets in either. No oxygen, no emotional nutrition, no real connection. When someone tries to help you, your body doesn't feel relief. It feels a threat. You feel like you are going to OE something, or that you are losing control. So, you reject the help, not out of pride, but out of panic. You are protecting yourself from a threat that doesn't exist anymore. Wearing armor that is now suffocating you. But, weirdly enough, while this first habit builds walls to keep people out, the next habit does something way more sinister. It makes you disappear, while you are standing right in front of them. This leads us straight to habit number 2, something you probably do 20 times a day without even blinking. The apology addiction. And I want to be super specific here. I am not talking about having good manners. I am talking about saying sorry when someone bumps into you on the street. Apologizing for talking too much in a 3-minute meeting. Literally apologizing for taking up physical space in a room. The rookie mistake is thinking this is just low self-esteem or being too nice. Nope, this is pure biology. In clinical psychology, this is known as the FAWN response. It is the 4th trauma response. The forgotten sibling of fight, flight, or freeze. Let's look at the hidden logic of your nervous system. If you grew up in an environment where the adults were unpredictable, volatile, or emotionally immature, your brain learned a survival equation real quick. If I make myself small enough, if I am agreeable enough, if I anticipate their needs before they even ask, maybe I won't get hurt today. The apology isn't an act of politeness. It is preventive de-escalation. You are trying to defuse a bomb. Before the timer even starts ticking, your brain is scanning other people's faces for micro gestures of disapproval because to your limbic system, disapproval equals death. Think of it with this analogy. It is like walking on eggshells in your OWN living room, but it goes deeper. Imagine every social interaction, ordering a coffee, talking to your boss, sending a text. It feels internally like a final exam you didn't study for. You feel like you are one wrong sentence away from being exposed, rejected, or abandoned. That is why you apologize. The apology is your way of saying, please don't attack me. I am already attacking myself. It is exhausting, right? Living in a state of perpetual submission burns a brutal amount of glucose in your brain. But here is the massive irony, and it is something nobody tells you about people pleasers. You cannot swallow your own needs for years without consequences. That submission doesn't disappear. It accumulates. And all that internal pressure is usually hiding a volcanic rage that is about to explode in the way you least expect. In habit number 3. And this is where that pressure cooker finally blows its lid. Which brings us to habit number 3. And I want you to listen closely, because this is the single most effective disguise for trauma: explosive irritability and toxic perfectionism. I need to make a massive side note here, especially for the guys watching this, or anyone who says, I don't have trauma. I am not depressed. I don't cry. I am not sad. The rookie mistake is thinking suffering always looks like tears. Bullshit. In many cases, especially if you were taught that vulnerability makes you weak, pain shapeshifts into rage. Let's talk about the hidden logic behind your bad attitude. If you snap because someone chews too loudly, or if a typo in an email ruins your entire morning, you aren't just demanding, you are biologically trapped in the fight response. Your nervous system interprets a lack of control as a death threat. Here is the technical concept: perfectionism as armor. You aren't chasing excellence to win a trophy. You are chasing perfection because, in the twisted logic of your trauma, if I am perfect, I am untouchable. You unconsciously believe that, if you control every variable, every word, and every move, nobody can criticize you, judge you, or hurt you again. Let's use this analogy. Your brain is operating in war mode. Imagine a soldier in an enemy trench. That soldier isn't chilling. He is scanning the horizon for movement. For you, a dirty dish isn't just a dirty dish. It is an act of disrespect. A red light isn't traffic. It is a personal obstacle put there specifically to stop you. Everything feels personal because your threat radar is dialed up to maximum sensitivity. You are shooting at shadows because your body never got the memo that the war is over. But there is an unavoidable physical problem with living in war mode. Keeping your guard up burns an unsustainable amount of metabolic energy. Eventually, the soldier runs out of ammo and collapses. And when that adrenaline runs dry, you crash into the opposite state. Which brings us to the cruelest, most misunderstood sign of them all. The one you, your parents, and your teachers always mistook for laziness, but is actually biological paralysis. When the soldier in your mind runs out of ammo and can't fight anymore, he doesn't just go back to calm. He collapses. This leads us to the mashup of habits number 4 and 5, which together form the stickiest trap of modern life: fake laziness and dissociative doom scrolling. The rookie mistake here is massive. You look in the mirror and say, I am a bum. I have no discipline. I should be working, but I have been watching shorts of people cutting soap or hydraulic presses crushing Barbie dolls for 3 hours. You beat yourself up for your lack of willpower. But listen to me. Laziness does not exist when trauma is involved. What you are experiencing is the biological freeze response. Let's go for the technical deep dive. You aren't looking at your phone because the content interests you. In fact, if I asked you what you watched 10 minutes ago, you would draw a blank. You aren't consuming information. You are seeking dissociation. Your nervous system is so overloaded with internal noise that it hunts for an external source of white noise to drown out your own thoughts. The infinite scroll isn't entertainment. It is digital anesthesia. It is the modern way of checking out of your body because living inside it hurts too much. And this comes bundled with a clinical symptom called anhedonia. Anhedonia is the physiological inability to feel pleasure. Your dopamine receptors are so fried from chronic stress that subtle things, a conversation, a walk, a healthy meal, don't register anymore. Your brain needs high voltage, low effort stimuli just to feel something. Let's use a medical analogy. Imagine you have a broken leg and you shoot yourself up with morphine. The morphine kills the pain, but it doesn't set the bone. Doom scrolling is your morphine. It keeps you still. It keeps you sedated, but it prevents you from doing the physical therapy needed to walk again. Dr. Gabor Mate, one of the top authorities on trauma and addiction, sums it up with brutal clarity. Don't ask, why the addiction? Ask, why the pain? The problem isn't that you are addicted to your phone. The problem is that the phone is the only accessible tool you have to regulate emotional pain you don't know how to manage. Your lazy behavior is actually your organism's desperate attempt to survive its own anguish. So, we have identified the symptoms: hyperindependence, the apology addiction, explosive rage, and now, digital paralysis. But knowing what you have doesn't cure you. You need to understand the exact mechanics of why your brain chose to protect you this way. The scientific answer has to do with a biological switch that got stuck. And understanding it will radically change how you see yourself. At this point, I need you to understand something fundamental, so you stop hating yourself. You don't have an attitude problem. You have a wiring problem. The rookie mistake, and the mistake of most cheap self-help, is trying to fix these habits with willpower. That is useless. Why? Because your prefrontal cortex, the logic part, isn't running the show. The guy driving the car is your autonomic nervous system. Let's go for the technical deep dive. Your system has two main switches. The sympathetic, the gas pedal, designed to save you from a lion. The parasympathetic, the brake, designed to heal, sleep, and digest. The hidden logic of your trauma is that the switch got broken in the on position. You are living with your foot glued to the gas, while the car is in neutral. The engine is roaring. The temperature is rising. The chassis is shaking. But you aren't moving. That is what anxiety or chronic burnout feels like. Your body is pumping cortisol like you are in a war zone, but you are just sitting in an office chair, replying to emails. This perfectly explains habit number 6, what clinical psychology calls the sad clown paradox. You definitely know someone, or maybe it is you, who is the life of the party, always cracking jokes. Biologically, this isn't joy. It is a sophisticated defense mechanism. If you make the threat laugh, the threat relaxes and doesn't attack you. Your charisma isn't personality. It is a high-functioning survival strategy to hide a nervous system that is screaming in panic on the inside. And here comes the most important cultural reframe you will hear today. There is a brutal quote that sums up our current situation. It takes people who haven't been touched by trauma to actually see the trauma. We live in a deeply sick society, a culture that normalizes burnout, disconnection, and predatory competition. So, what you call your symptoms, or your illness, are actually healthy responses to a toxic environment. Your body is doing exactly what it evolved to do. Protect you in a hostile place. You aren't a system error. You are an efficient survivor. But here is the trap. Knowing why this happens relieves the guilt, but it doesn't put out the fire. Understanding the mechanism doesn't lower your cortisol. To convince your body that the war is over and that it can finally release the parking brake, you need to manually hack your biology with what I am about to teach you now. This brings us to the seventh and final habit. But this one is different. It isn't a symptom of your trauma. It is the antidote. I call it active nervous system recovery. The rookie mistake is thinking relaxing means melting into the couch and binging Netflix. We already established that is dissociation, not rest. To kill that fire alarm in your head, you don't need to think more. You need to use your biology to hack your psychology. Here are 2 emergency tools that work in real time, and I want you to try them with me right now. Tool number 1 is the physiological sigh, or the double inhale. The hidden logic here is fluid dynamics. When you are stressed, the tiny air sacs in your lungs, the alveoli, collapse and trap carbon dioxide. That screams to your brain, danger. Most people tell you to take a deep breath, but they do it wrong. They inhale a ton of air at once. Here is the correct technique. Big inhale through the nose. Don't let it out yet. Take a second, and short, sharp inhale to top off the lungs. This pops those collapsed air sacs open. Exhale, super slow, through your mouth. Like you are blowing through a straw. It is like resetting the Wi-Fi router when the internet is lagging. That long exhale mechanically activates the vagus nerve, which is your heart's parking brake. Do this 3 times, and it is physiologically impossible to stay in panic mode. Tool number 2 is the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding method. Use this when you catch yourself doom scrolling or in perfectionist paralysis. The concept is to yank your brain out of the future, anxiety, and bring it back to the present, safety. The technique is to name out loud 5 things you see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you hear, 2 things you smell, and 1 thing you taste. The technical breakdown. When the amygdala, the fear center, takes the wheel, your prefrontal cortex, the logic center, shuts down. By forcing yourself to observe and label your environment, you force the prefrontal cortex to boot back up. It is like dropping a heavy anchor in a storm, so the boat stops drifting. Now, a vital disclaimer. What I'm giving you is tactical first aid. This is education, not medical treatment. If you have a deep wound, a band-aid helps, but it doesn't replace a surgeon. If your trauma feels unmanageable, finding a trauma-informed therapist isn't weakness. It is the smartest strategic move you can make. These tools will give you the air you need to survive the day-to-day, but to actually heal, to stop surviving and start living. We need to rewrite one final fundamental belief that keeps you tied to the past. Let's do a brutally honest recap of what we just uncovered. Today you realized that the hyper-independence you take pride in isn't a trophy. It is a wall that isolates you. You understood that apologizing for taking up space isn't manners. It is fear. You saw that your explosive rage is just a shield, and that your so-called laziness is actually a nervous system that has been running an invisible marathon for years. You can't unsee this now. Ignorance is no longer an option. And this leads us to the hardest, most liberating truth you are going to hear. Your trauma was not your fault. What was done to you, or what you lacked, was not your choice. But your healing, that is 100% your responsibility. No one is coming to save you. Why? Because nobody can get inside your nervous system and kill that alarm, except you. You have the tools, you have the breath work, you have the knowledge. Now, you have to do the dirty work of recovery. If you thought of someone while watching this, that friend who is always the rock, the person who carries the weight of the world and never complains, send them this video right now. Don't do it for the algorithm. Do it because that person probably thinks they are losing their mind. And this link might be the permission slip they need to finally drop the load. And if you are ready to stop being a spectator in your own mind, remember this. In a world that profits from your sickness, understanding your own biology is the greatest act of rebellion there is. But we are just getting started. You have understood your shadow. Now we are going to attack the ego. In the next video, I am dropping a controversial bomb: why birthdays are the ultimate narcissistic ritual, and the true origin of main character syndrome. It is going to offend a lot of people. Subscribe and hit the bell now. Make sure you have a front row seat when the controversy blows up.